That's not a window I wanted. Great. That's going to be fun. Just bring in my YouTube window and mute the sound. Actually, it won't be on that one anyway, so that's good. And there we are. Get the link going on the Twitters. Oh no, I can't. What am I doing? I absolutely start this with "It's alive."
Yes, it really is.
So how have you been doing since you started this now?
Woo, I'm feeling good, but I'm also exhausted. I mean, I've been treating it like a nonstop job. I mean, it's not even that I'm treating it that way. It just happened to be that way because I'm obsessed, man, with success and just making this the best thing I've ever done. So it's, I fall over at the end of the day and finally pass out, and then wake up with a whole list of new things to do the next day. So but there's something about it that's so fun too. It's like you're exhausted, but you're having the time of your life. So I'm really enjoying it. Getting to meet new people that actually love my work through this has been really gratifying, humbling. So it's been great. I'm trying to reach out right now and crack the horror world nut because there's already a lot of cool comic fans that like what I'm doing, but I'd love to get the horror people involved too. So that's kind of a work in progress.
Because it seems like that a lot of the books right now are kind of superhero-ish or not necessarily horror. If they are monster, they're more of a sci-fi thing going. So, so yours is different. And well, first of all, let's go back to the very beginning. It's a very good place to start, so I'm told. How long have you been sitting on Monster MD?
I started writing Monster MD in 2015 as a short film that I was thinking about trying to produce and actually shoot. So it would have been a very toned down story and production, maybe a 10 to 15 minute film. And I was having so much fun writing that script. I was actually working at a tea house at the time, managing a tea house. And while I would sip tea, I would sit there and work on it all day. And it really quickly seemed to be a better comic book to me than a short script. And also just trying to film a movie costs so much money, and it's so much more exhausting than comics. It's not as invigorating to someone like me. Some people just, film is their crack. It's their meaning in life. It's what excites them. For me, I'm just bored as hell on film sets. I don't like directing. I don't like dealing with all the people. I don't like the fact that your creative output in film doesn't come out the way you want it. Whereas in a comic book, it is what you want, So I started turning it into a comic book pretty quickly from short film and working on a version of Monster MD that you have not seen that was a more indie style version of it with a different artist. And unfortunately, we had a falling out over time, and he kind of grabbed some money from me and ran, to be honest. And so I had this almost finished project, and it was cool and fun, but it really was it was very indie and really not the quality that I thought my story and characters deserved. So I ended up looking around on Facebook and discovering this Italian artist named Marco Maccagni, and he draws monstery stuff all the time. He does things like Vamp Blade and Zombie Tramp for Action Labs Comics. And he's just remarkable. His line work and his eye for like making monster stuff fun and kind of animated, cartoony a little bit, but still serious and kind of gory. He just does it all and he blends it really well. And that was the perfect blend for Monster MD. I hired him to do a little pinup of Heidi and Dr. Wyatt Black and Heidi's playing a little prank on him and dumping a bucket of monster guts on him. And he without much direction, captured exactly what I wanted. And so that's how I knew this guy had the intuition as an artist and the style that really melds with what I'm trying to do. And then I hired him to do my cover. Now, he was just going to do the cover. The cover was so good and got such a big response from the community. I knew I had to get this guy as my artist. I had to. He was just perfect for the project. So I asked him, and to my surprise, he said yes. And he's got so many other projects going on. I did not expect a yes. So we've been working on it ever since. Now it's his favorite project to work on, while he works on like 4 books at once. We've been gunning ahead ever since. And that must have started back in 2018. Was when the Marco team, started. I have the same colorist I had on my first version of Monster MD, Tanya Wicker, and she's been incredible. And her colors with Marco's inks has just been a match made in heaven. So good time so far.
So you started the current project in 2018. That would have been just about the time that comic books were really starting to take off with Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Was that an influence, or were you trying to make the comic book before you even thought about crowdfunding it?
Yeah, by the time I started making with Marco, I definitely saw a crowdfunding future for us because the quality's there. The first version of Monster MD was so indie and kind of grimy that I thought, this is just a cute little fun free web comic that I'm going to release and learn from, and which is great. I learned great things from working on that book. I put so much blood, sweat, and tears into it. But I mean, when Marco was on board, I knew I had something special. It was one of those things where I knew I had to build up to crowdfunding. And people like Ethan Van Sciver and Richard Meyer of Diversity in Comics, they definitely were an influence and inspirational to me, to that, the little guy can give people something that they're not getting out of their regular comic book store and be successful with it.
All right, well, let's talk about the characters and the concepts here. You've talked about Dr. Wyatt Black, and of course his medical assistant Heidi Hyde. And I'm the guy who was on Twitter the other day saying, "Is Heidi Hyde a hoe?" But
it just works, right? It just kind of flows. Heidi Hyde a hoe.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like a song in the making, right? Yeah. So Dr. Wyatt Black. Now, when I first conceptualized Monster MD, it was a Pixar family film in my head. And this was years ago, before 2015, when I started writing the script. And it was like this cute idea that goes into the idea stack and then just collects dust on your computer for a little while. And one day I had a nightmare, and it was about a doctor in like a makeshift van full of medical supplies working on a werewolf that was biting and clawing at him, like strapped to a table. And it was dark, it was scary, it was funny. He's like punching the werewolf. And I woke up with these chills, and I realized I have to make a more monsterish style, like more kind of adult-ish style story out of this, and drop the family thing. And I started seeing, to be honest, maybe it was because Deadpool was churning up a storm at the box office at the time, but I started to see Dr. Black as Ryan Reynolds and started to see him as this rugged, beat up Ryan Reynolds who was smart, kind of smart, kind of sassy, kind of funny, and just downtrodden and beaten up though by the world. And maybe I've always had a thing for characters like that anyway, though, those kind of fallen from grace characters, beat up from the world, kind of outcasty. As a kid who grew up on X-Men and Wolverine books, I've always had a thing for that kind of like them against the world type characters. And that's kind of what Dr. Black is. He's a guy who's not sure of his place in the world. And that really ends up relating to our story in Monster MD. Heidi H. Hyde took on a life of her own. I mean, I've always loved The Invisible Man since I was a kid. I read the books. I found weird, cool comic books that they've made over the years of Invisible Man and enjoyed those as a kid. And now I had a chance to put an invisible character in my story because I'm doing monsters. And so the first thing I wanted to do is make her as a supporting character. And I thought, why can't he have an assistant nurse or a surgical assistant who is invisible? And Heidi being an invisible woman in the scrubs with the little goggles, like everyone just falls in love immediately and thinks she's awesome. So she kind of almost wrote herself. That's what I loved about this project, is it kind of wrote itself. It was so fun and such a good concept that it just kind of came to life on its own. So yeah, Heidi actually has a really cool backstory though that I've developed, and I would love to be able to do that as a stretch goal to add to the comic if we can make it there.
Well, let's make that happen, because everybody wants to know who Heidi is.
Mm-hmm.
I always had trouble writing invisible characters because I overthink things. And it's like, okay, if you're invisible, then that means that light passes right through you.
Right.
Which means that it doesn't bounce off your retinas, which means that you're blind.
Right.
So if you're invisible, you can't see your way around. But
right. I actually call it being I call Heidi being on a different spectrum of light.
Okay.
And like, that's just how you cheat it, you know, because other people were like, what about her blood? What about, you know, when she uses the bathroom? And I'm like, my theory was anything her body produces is on a different spectrum. All of her
so
cells.
Many ways that can go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. You're kind of cheating it a little bit in the name of sci-fi, you know.
Oh, well, sure.
You know, but yeah, it's not something that I wanted to explore too much. Like in her backstory, I don't explore it too much, but there is a machine involved that kind of converts her.
Okay. Dark Admiral Mark Harris here. Hello, Dark Admiral. And he said he's talking about, the doctor says he looks like Bruce Campbell in Army of Darkness, and I can definitely see that in the eyes there.
Yeah.
Was any Ash influence when you were thinking of Ryan Reynolds?
You know, I love Ash so much, and Ash versus Evil Dead so much. That show is killer. I was so sad when they canceled it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of Ash attitude of being a badass who has to deal with all these like tragic circumstances and crazy creatures comes through in Dr. Black. I've loved Army of Darkness since I was really young too, so I wouldn't be surprised if that made it in there. The fight scenes in Monster MD and the gore of it, I would definitely say could remind you of good old Ash. Yeah.
Now the tagline that you're promoting this with is "Evil needs a checkup," or "Evil gets a checkup." I could be off on either one of those there. This presupposes that the monsters then are in fact evil.
Right, or they are seen as evil, and that's just the way it is, and it's never going to change. But it doesn't mean that they commit evil. In fact, I like to think that when Dr. Black helps them, it ups their empathy, and there's almost a kind of deal, maybe whether spoken or unspoken, where these monsters are not going to be feasting upon our little babies in the night anytime soon. So the ones he's helping, hopefully, you know, are a little more human friendly. For instance, an example I can give is he gives a bag of these special blood pills to a vampire so he won't end up suckling upon the masses. And he does these kind of drug deals to keep, you know, these vampires satiated and happy. So
that works. So when you have all these monsters in here, and you've said you've got dozens of them, all the different kinds of monsters are going to be in this book. I can think of a lot of monsters, and they all come in different classes and categories. I mean, are we talking about the universal monsters, or are we talking about the Lovecraftian elder gods, or are we talking about all of them?
Well, it's fun because you might see a poster in the background inside of Dr. Black's lab on wheels, also known as the meat wagon. You might see a poster of Godzilla there, and then there's your little Godzilla giant monster reference without me having to put a giant monster in there. There is a reference to Lovecraftian deep ones, things like that. But I mean, I started with the classics because I grew up loving the classics. And as a little boy, I was introduced to all the classic Universal monsters. I was painting the models of them. I still have the models to this day on my shelf as I talk to you right there. And I also grew up on Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is like a classic comedy. And that really was an influence on me because, and then Elvira came in the 80s, and I was a big 80s kid. And so this this melding of comedy and horror has always been a big thing that I've loved and been into. And so that's part of where Monster MD comes from as well. So you will see references to the universal monsters, everything from the creature from the Black Lagoon to vampires and Frankenstein. Our vampire isn't a Dracula per se, as much as he is a little punk kid, but he has a big widow's peak and he tries to use his hand like Bela Lugosi to hypnotize Dr. Black, so you get that reference. So it's there's a lot there, man. You don't see much of, not at all. I'm trying to make vampires pieces of crap, like evil parasites that, you know, like I think Wyatt ends up calling him a leech with shoes or something like that. Like, let's just bring vampires back down to the realistic level instead of making them into, you know, boy toys. Sparkly boy toys.
Now you've thrown out some toys and some shows that take me back. Usually when I'm talking to people on here, you know, I just turned 52 years old. I'm the old man walking around Comicsgate. I don't know if I'm older than Edwin or not, but I'm going to see here if you remember a Saturday morning. There were two Saturday morning live action monster shows. One was the original Ghostbusters with Forrest Tucker and Larry Storch that Filmation did.
Yes.
There's a really interesting story when I interviewed Lou Scheimer about that, where he forced them into giving him royalties because he was the first with live action, and then they kind of screwed him out of them because the film didn't make any money. Ghostbusters didn't make any money.
Right.
Funny how that happened. But the other one that I watched was a show called Monster Squad, and it was not like the movie Monster Squad. It was just this guy who was a night watchman at a museum, a wax museum. And the wax figures of the Universal monsters, Frankenstein, the Mummy, Frankenstein, the Dracula, and the werewolf, came to life when he activated his machine. And they wanted to make amends for their sins and fight crime. So they were fighting all these supernatural crimes. It was this really goofy but live action monster thing.
That's fun.
Did you ever see that? You might want to hit that up on YouTube. That was.
I think I am going to have to hit that up because it's vaguely familiar, but not too familiar. I do remember the original Ghostbusters, though, which is why we have the animated, the real Ghostbusters. But yeah, very interesting stuff there. That's a hilarious premise. I kind of like the idea of monsters, you know, kind of trying to, you know, that's really great redemption arcs for monsters. You know, it's
redemption arc for monsters. The only thing I remember from it is two things. Was that they got frozen one time by some freeze ray, and the curator who would be their leader got a Morse code message from the vampire because they can stop and start their heart at will. And then the werewolf had to produce ID, and his name was Bruce W. Wolf. And they're like, "What's the W stand for?" He says, "Where?" Right there between Bruce and Wolf. Oh, where?
Nice.
And the original Ghostbusters with the gorilla. That was and yes, Dark Admiral, I did interview Mr. Scheimer, and you can find that in our archives. And hello, Supergirl. He got a really upset letter when, gosh, I'm trying to think. When the cartoon came out, the real Ghostbusters cartoon came out, that somebody was mad that they had replaced Winston with a gorilla, and they thought it was very racist. And they were very upset, and he couldn't get them to understand that no, the gorilla was first.
Yeah,
it was a gorilla in the live action show. He just felt heartbroken about that this person had thought that he had done that.
I mean, no one takes away Winston. Nobody.
Of course not.
Love him. We love our Winston. All right.
So we're dealing drugs to vampires. And
yes.
I don't know what all he does. I mean, I'm assuming he is like, okay, then, the Wolfman got shot again by a silver bullet. Hand me the forceps. We got to pull these things out. I mean, he goes on house calls. He's working out of a van, right?
Well, he's working in a van. He definitely can go pick you up, but you see a lot of his work stationed in this kind of place outside of the city, recluse, far away from it all, with nice forest around him, by the lake, by the muddy banks of a kind of a creepy old lake. So he has his private place away from it all. where you see a lot of the story play out. So when he works on a werewolf and he's pulling bullets out of him, the werewolf is healing over them the whole time and snapping at him, and it's just crazy. So he definitely needs, even though he's got his private work van thing that he's built himself, he definitely needs that private away from it all, scenario.
Sure. Now, is Monster MD, is it an origin story? Is it, or we're just going to say he does what he does and here's where we are? Is it an anthology, or is it one great big graphic novel? I mean, where are we at with this?
We're 111 pages of graphic novel telling a big story that does cover his origin, but as a story, it's not a full origin story. His origin, you could say, is like a chapter within the story.
Okay,
the
I do want
story
to go on
itself,
record right now saying 111 pages is holy crap. That's a graphic novel.
yeah, that's right. And that part of making this book wasn't just about making the story. It, for me, branched into, I want to make something really big and high quality and give people a good price on it and run it like a really fun Indiegogo for it. So it was all about this product I wanted to make too, because the original Monster MD was 75 pages. I've built it into something bigger and better since then, not just in terms of story, but hopefully like a product that's appealing. For $25. You get 111 full color pages.
That's fantastic. Now let's talk about it as a product, because a lot of people, when they want to make a comic book, they think, I need a writer and I need an artist, and you got all that and you put it together. Nobody thinks past the, I've got to actually make this a book, and how do I do that now that I've got the art and the story? So how did you go about finding, somebody that you could work with, printing and distributing and, dispersing the product?
Everything I've done on my campaign has been through learning through others. When my dad, when I was a kid, my dad said that, he taught me about how the Japanese, for instance, would, they didn't invent the VCR, but they figured out how to make really good, efficient ones for cheap, and I went and looked off of everyone else's campaigns. What did they do that was successful? What did they do that wasn't? What did they do that I liked? What did they do that I didn't? And I started formulating a campaign that I really liked. I also looked into who they used for their printing and went to the websites and studied up. So I ended up finding printers and people that I like. And then my brother, I decided to go a little homegrown for some of the items too. Like, for instance, pins, buttons, patches, t-shirts. Sure. So my brother does punk band stuff, and so he knows all about that stuff. So I got referrals from him for some of the more local printers, which might be pretty cheap. I don't have to worry about shipping. It might be kind of cool to support my local artists too. So I've been kind of looking into keeping it local in some ways as well. So yeah, it's been a process of learning and just studying up on what, is best for the type of product I want to make. And different printers offer different things, and you just have to kind of whittle it down from there.
If we continue to see enough successful comic campaigns, and we obviously have seen the nearly $1 million Cyber Frog. We've seen the Richard C. Myers campaign, which was not the first crowdfunded comic book, but it certainly is sort of a cornerstone for this J curve we've seen of successful products coming out. If we continue to see that, I would expect to start seeing printers and distributors advertising themselves to the crowdfunding crowd, saying, hey, are you making a comic book? You might want to come see this. This is what we can do for you.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. They're going to be printing a lot of books if they get the right clients, and if they come to us, there's just more money to be had for everyone.
Exactly. It's time for them to start competing with each other for your business.
No doubt.
Our business. I don't publish anything.
And I've been lucky that I got a job just before I started doing Monster MD, working for John Malin and Mark Polton, writing a story for Graveyard Shift Volume 2. And so I asked them a few questions, and they've been amazing and helpful on what they used and what worked for them in their book, Graveyard Shift. So that's been helpful as well. I lucked out on that.
Yeah, that's another thing about this community that it's competitive, because everyone wants to do their best, but it's also collaborative in that, it's like, yeah, you're competing for my readers, but I'm going to help you anyway by telling you how to do things.
Right. A rising tide raises all ships. Is that? I don't know. I probably butchered it, but that's the
No, you
phrase.
got it right.
And that's the attitude that I think is keeping us going, and that's great. I mean, we did not let all the political intimidation and all the nastiness and drama overcome us. Right now we have Doom Kicker, just killing it on Indiegogo. We've got Gunship Thunder Punch doing amazing as well. And then we've got my book, and we all came out around the same time, and yet we're all succeeding. No one's really taking away from the other. In fact, people are probably who might have backed me are probably waiting till later back Doom Kicker, and vice versa. So it's really cool how this community and the camaraderie has transferred over into success for little guys like me.
Well, you won't be a little guy for much longer if you keep this up.
Let's hope not. I don't want to be. If I'm gonna do this, I'm in it to win it, man. I've been making comics since I was 9 years old, but I always fell away from making comics. I wish I just stuck with it because it was so much fun. I don't know why I guess I was always curious about exploring playing music or, writing novels or whatever, graphic design. I've explored all these different things. I always come back to my one and true mistress, comics. And now that I'm back with Monster MD, I'm here to stay for sure.
You said you got 111 pages of story. How many of those are completed pages? I mean, how close to you to having everything ready to go to a printer?
We are, I put off our campaign for, I don't know how many months. I put it off for a few months so that we would be at a certain point once we launched. Because I felt more comfortable with that. I don't want to be one of those campaigns that's another thing that I learned when I was studying up on this. I don't want to be a campaign that's has nothing done and just begs for money,
Right.
And I'm always blown away when campaigns don't even have a cover to their comic. I'm like, what are you doing? But that's just me. It doesn't mean they won't be successful. They can still be awesome and successful, but due to other circumstances. But I'm not a name, man.
Yeah, you better have George Perez on that cover if you're selling it without showing something right now.
That's right. And I don't have that name. So I wanted to be pretty far in, and my artist, Marco, did such a good job. He actually moved faster than I expected. So we were ahead of schedule. We are about 80% done with the pages, the inked pages. We're about 20% done with finalized pages with colors. And my letterer, Eric Weathers, the letterer, if you will, of everyone's book. I call him the over letterer. He is the das Überletterer. He's amazing. He is going to be able to edit and be able to letter and edit with me, no problem. So I'm not worried about how long that will take. And I plan a product that's going to hopefully ship in the fall or winter. It's going to take some more time to finish it still, but I mean, Marco is finishing up those pages quickly. So,
well, that's excellent, and you are fully funded now, so there's no worries that we're not going to see the book. And we talked about earlier a stretch goal for a Heidi backstory. Where would you set something like that at?
Well, let me check my notes because I totally just forgot where I put good old Heidi. I was at 20. Yeah, no doubt. Poor Heidi, invisible again to the masses. She's so awesome. I think she has more fans than Wyatt, my main character, does at this point.
She may just be the next book.
Yeah, right. Actually, that's funny that you say that because I started writing a sketch for what the second story of Monster MD could be. And I wanted to explore, because this first one delves into Wyatt's backstory, I thought it'd be cool to go into Heidi's backstory for the second book. But if I reach the stretch goal, you're going to get the 30 grand. We have Heidi's backstory. It's called Hidden Monster. It's the mesmerizing backstory where you get to see Heidi and you get to see how she became invisible by me and my artist, Marco. So,
well, we got to hit that. Let's make that happen, people. Both of you. Well, I want to say this right now. We're back in business. We've got something of a studio. It will get better and cleaner as I finish unpacking and rearranging. So we're at 508 subscribers right now. If you're watching this, please subscribe, please share. YouTube obviously doesn't monetize anybody till they hit 1,000, and they've still got to pass some sort of litmus test. So we're going to keep it nice and clean and family friendly and talk about comics. And we're going to talk to as many independent publishers as we can, because let's face it, the big guys, much as I love talking to them, and I will talk to them if we get the chance, but they don't need us. It's the little guys who need to get the word out, and we're a little guy too, so let's work together on that. So please share, subscribe, tell people to hit the bell, and let's get that tide raising and all these boats up, including ours. That's right.
And thank you guys for coming in, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Vaughn, for showing up. We're glad to be back in the podcasting, video blogging business here, and we will save this video out there for people to come in and see, and we're going to tweet the heck out of it. And I've got to go out now and get my backing money in on Monster MD, because now I want to read it.
That makes me happy. Thanks. I really love hearing that, man. I get a lot of messages from people who say they aren't into monsters, but the art and the action and the humor just is too enticing, and they got to have the book. So yeah, it's not just your classic cliche monster book or a horror style book. It's got just, I don't know what it is. It's just my style, I guess, is kind of something I'm going to get to share with everyone finally. And I just hope people enjoy it as much as I do. I really like stories with heart, a lot of human emotion, and just real characters that you can sink your teeth into. But I also like to I naturally write jokes in almost everything I write too. So this was just easy to do, because monsters and being a doctor to them is kind of a ridiculous scenario. So I really hope that people will be entertained. From what I heard from some people who've seen some early stuff, some of my artist friends that I've, confidentially shown things, I feel like they told me that it made them kind of tear up. So if I have people crying, we have you crying, sorry.
Well, okay, now I don't know if I want to read it or not, because I don't want to cry.
It's a good kind of cry.
It's
good. You'll be glad you got it out.
All right. Well, everybody, we've been talking with Von Klaus, the creator behind Monster MD, and we are going to get the link to that Indiegogo up here in the description of the channel. Please do click that, put your money in there, and get yourself what looks like is going to be a very fun book and very great comic book.
Yeah, thanks, man. Any more questions or?
What do we got here? We got Supergirl. I don't know if she's stuck around. Dark Admiral March Hare has said he bought today. He backed Monster MD first day, secret tier. So
thank you.
You got a super fan there, and he plans on backing the other books. So thank you for that, Dark Admiral, and tell your friends.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy that I put that secret tier together, because it gives you a lot for your money.
So
maybe
what's
I'll
in
have to send you a link. It's called the Fan Bundle, and the Fan Bundle, you get the sketchbook, the main book, both signed, of course, and you get a Heidi poster of the Heidi pinup that the amazing Miss Zashi did, and then you get a Monster MD pin, all for under $50.
Very cool indeed. That's a bargain. So
yeah.
I mean, you're talking 111 pages. It's already a bargain just for the book itself, because those are going for you could easily pay that in a bookstore for a 111-page graphic novel.
Right. Yeah, definitely these days. I just want to, that's part of what I wanted to do. It's not just make the best book possible, but give people good deals that make them happy, because I feel like that builds customers for future endeavors.
Absolutely. And it's not a floppy. It's not like a 22-page floppy for $25. You're getting you're getting a brick of a book here. I mean, 111 pages, gosh.
Yeah, no cliffhangers, just good old-fashioned story, beginning, middle, and end. Juicy art.
Yeah, 111 pages. That's about this thick. This is my not going to
Is
be this
that?
tall. Obviously, it's no Winsor McCay book.
Oh, I love Windsor McCay. God,
Oh,
he's an
you
amazing
like
artist.
Winsor McCay? Check
Yeah.
this out.
Oh man.
It's
Oh, it's Gertie the dinosaur. That's amazing. Oh my God, that guy was amazing. He was just like, screw it, I'll just do animation. I'll just do it, and he did it. Oh wow.
Well, he was the first, and there's Windsor himself. He's supposed to stand
Yeah.
up. This is a model that I never got around to painting because I just couldn't despoil it with my own attempts at brushing on it. But my God,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
the things he did. I was researching for a fictional Winsor McCay biography that by the time I finally got it written, nobody had done anything like this book here. And by the time I got it written, this came out, and I'm like, well, everything in here was wrong. So it's a fictional biography, and I'm going to publish it as such. And it is on Amazon in my book, Strange Imaginings. It's called The Onironaut. So you want to read about Winsor McCay, or you want to read about what Dorothy Gale did when she came back from Oz and joined the Navy in World War I, all those things are in there.
Cool.
No links. You're just going to have to go digging.
No doubt.
All right. Well, thank you, Vaughn, for the time you spent with us and just chatting about Monster MD and other stuff that's on the shelf behind me.
Yeah.
We wish you the best of success. We're going to try and participate in that ourselves. And we're going to end it right here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.